Hi there, welcome to Zero Carbon Champions, the Planet Mark sort of video of amazing interviews with amazing people helping their organizations be more sustainable, radically cut carbon, and indeed go to zero carbon. And today we're sort of delighted to have with us, or with me, and sharing with you, Ross Wilson from Ingram Valley Farm. Ross, you're going to tell us a bit about that in a moment. You're in Northumberland, and Ingram Valley is the very, very first farm in the world to be certified to the Planet Mark. So we're so delighted to be working together with you, Ross and Rebecca and your dad and everything. So kick us off, Ross. Tell us a bit about you, Ingram Valley Farm, and where are you on your sustainability journey?
Hi, Steve. Well, thank you very much for that. Yeah, I'm Ross Wilson from Ingram Valley Farm, a farm up in Northumberland with my wife, Rebecca, and my dad, John. We got involved with the Planet Mark through my wife about 2 years ago now, and it just seemed a good natural fit for our business. We're an upland livestock farm, very extensive, organic, a lot of permanent pasture, and we're a scheduled monument as well. And we felt that the goals of the Planet Mark were the same goals as ours as to what we're looking to do sustainability-wise in terms of reducing our emissions and, being, kind at the environment, which I think we are. But it's been a, really good journey so far. We're enjoying the challenges that we're faced with in terms of making an effort to reduce all our carbon footprints and increase our biodiversity on the farm for the benefit of the environment and also for the benefit of our business.
And so thanks, Ross. And, it's a pleasure working with you guys and, just being involved from a wider sustainability perspective. But what role do you think farms play generally in helping sort of tackle sustainability issues, be it, climate change, carbon reduction through to sort of biodiversity and protecting ecosystems?
Well, I think farms are going to be at the very heart of sustainability going forwards. They're key to the future because of the land mass it takes up. I think upland farms such as ours, grassland farms, have got a really, really big part to play. We, by grazing on grasslands and upland pastures, we're not only helping to sequester carbon with the permanent pasture, but also with having the livestock grazing in the hills, we're reducing the dung, the organic matter, the insect life for the birds, and increasing the population of breeding waders, for example, on our hill, as well as providing a local source of food. It's really the carbon story that we find quite interesting. We're working with DEFRA on a test and trial, and have actually looked at some of our carbon levels in the soil and on our permanent pastures. That they're huge, 248 tonnes per hectare of stored organic carbon, and that's on the hill land. On our ploughed land, slightly less than 70, but we're still really pleased with what we're doing. And I say the key to it is having an extensive outdoor-based upland system. So I think I'm probably getting a bit in depth in terms of what I'm talking about numbers, but I really think it's an exciting future for us farming because we're effectively sequestering the carbon that is produced.
Well, I was about to say, I think that actually this level of detail is really what's needed, and the numbers to support it, and the story behind those numbers. So, perhaps you can elaborate a little bit. So it's really interesting that sort of the amount of carbon stored on the uplands is 240 tonnes per hectare and 70
hectare
on the ploughed areas.
Yeah, well, we did some soil samples with AgriVista, and just very recently came through the last few days, and it's been a real eye opener for us to say the organic carbon stock on the uplands on the hill land is 248 tonnes. On the lower permanent pasture, it's 100 tonnes a hectare, and on a field of spring barley, which we've recently ploughed, it's 60. So it goes to show that having a permanent pasture and that uplands is really, really key for the carbon sequestration, for the environmental benefits. So we're trying still to analyse the data and see how it fits in going forward and how farms can play their part, because we're obviously facing a world of reduced subsidies, and the margins for upland farms are going to be very, very tight without support. The market doesn't necessarily provide the funding and the products, so if we can look to get involved in the carbon side of it and sequestration, I think it's a really important role to play.
Well, sequestration is a part of the net zero carbon sort of plan, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So, but tell us, a bit about the farm, and what do you think the biggest impact that you have done in terms of a practical measure? I mean, it sounds like it might be that survey actually, but what are your thoughts?
Well, that survey's been huge, but I think it's only telling us what's been there. I mean, some of the biggest practical steps we've done is reducing our fuel use, and my wife's driven that. We're now driving 2 electric cars. We've reduced our tractors from 4 to 1, reducing our horsepower on our motorbikes. We still have to have a petrol quad bike because the electric ones just aren't quite there yet for our hill. And just also the way we manage our livestock, we're looking to move towards a more rotationally grazed system whereby we rest and graze and recover the land as opposed to set stocking. It was still in the early stages of that, but we've seen certain benefits. We've also moved to an outwintering system for our cattle, so we defer grass in the summer to let the cows graze on the hill in the winter, which enables us to reduce our machinery use in the sheds. So it's basically looking almost turning back time in certain respects and seeing what can the land support and fitting your livestock around the land. And our farm, not every farm's the same, lends itself to this outwintering system whereby we can reduce costs and inputs and help the farm, so help the bottom line as well.
I mean, there's so many things that you mentioned that you're doing. Is that a challenge? And is there a single biggest challenge, or is the challenge running all of those sort of concurrent projects?
The challenge is, I suppose, going to be running these projects profitably. We've seen benefits going, in the last 5 or 6 years of what we've done from an inside cubicle-based system producing slurry, which we couldn't get on the land, so we've taken that out and everything's outside now. So some of it has eased up labour requirements, but maybe we can't run quite the higher stocking rates because of, we're organic at the minute, but we haven't reduced our need for fertiliser on the farm, but we have to be very careful what we stock and not too heavy. Be susceptible to hard winters. That's a really, the springs and the summers and the winters and the autumns, they're key to how we survive as a business. And challenge like the year like this, where we went straight from winter to summer in June, was a real challenge, and some of the costs to our business were huge. But we're trying to have resilience to the business so we can get through these. So. And
to do that, I presume so. There's there's opportunity here, isn't there, as well? So you're looking at running a series of projects along to create a more sustainable farm. It's challenging, but you're doing it for a reason. What do you think the benefits are? What do you get out of it?
What do we get out of it?
You're doing it for the greater good, aren't you? But also, from a farming perspective, what do you think the benefits are?
Well, the farmer's perspective, certainly by using, going to greener technology such as electricity, is reducing fuel costs. We've slashed our fuel costs on the farm.
Have you got a percentage on that? How much can you save? Can you give any?
Well, just for example, on our car alone, we might have spent 350 pounds a month in fuel, and we've got that down to about 30, 40 pounds a month electricity, which we see that's just one vehicle, so we see that's quite a saving. Our tractor policy, we used to have 4 tractors. Well, now there's one, so there's only one machine depreciating, one machine to insure tax and fuel. But you have to be very critical with your management, your livestock, to enable you to manage with one tractor. And by having everything in the sheds, we would need a telehandler, a feeder machine, a bedder machine, and much more inputs. So we have to rely on the outwintering and taking the stock to where the feed is probably the simplest description, rather than taking the feed to where the stock is. And in that way, we've managed to save time and effort, and on a gross margin basis for our cattle, certainly I think doubled that, which is good. But we're going to need to do that and some to replace possibly some of the direct payments which are disappearing from farming businesses.
I think that's all part about, we see sustainability is about, this sort of balance between sort of economic, environmental and social impacts, aren't there? And, getting those properly in balance. In terms of, you're living and breathing this, Ross and Rebecca and your dad, John, but what's your one piece of advice for somebody who might be earlier on the journey than you?
My one bit of advice would be, go with your gut with it. Look at where you want to be, your goals. Don't try and do everything at once, and just take it step by step, try something, and if it works, carry on. If it doesn't, try something else. Don't be afraid to fail, and don't be put off by others saying it can't be done. Just have a go, and take inspiration from like-minded people who've succeeded in doing things. I've taken advice off certain farmers who I look up to and respect, and I've seen them go ahead and prove that things can be done. And enjoy it and want to do it. That'll be it's more than one bit of advice, but it's certainly the way we go.
Sounds like a bit of advice for life generally, isn't it, really? But fully subscribe to that. Now then, there's always the tricky question at the end, which is you say, this is how we cut carbon, this is how we switch to EVs. But we're all heading in a direction where we're not only trying to avert the worst effects of climate change, we're trying to create something better, aren't we? Do you have a vision that you could share about what you see as, what does better look like?
Better to me looks like living in a more local way. I think better for me looks like you live in a community, you source your food and your water, from your local community. You buy your local meat from the hills, you buy your vegetables from the local farmers. You go back to almost seasonality, and it's a very hard thing in this world where we've gone to a very much consumer-driven culture, wants everything at once. But I think that's having a very negative effect on the planet. And I think going back to locality, seasonality, and just supporting local, I think it's really, really important. And I think if everyone did that in their areas across the country, the government got on board and really enabled us to do that. The infrastructures aren't just in place yet, but doing that, I think would have a huge, huge effect on the benefit in our area and the planet as a whole.
I think it's a huge mental benefit as well, isn't there, as well, about that sort of local connection with nature too, maybe as well, I know these sessions are really short, they're punchy, we can't ask too many questions, but I know we could talk for many, many more hours. I think what we might ask you to do, if it's okay, is to maybe just jot down some notes for us one day and share with us that findings, if you're happy to do that with a survey. And so many people are asking about sequestration.
Absolutely. No, I'll certainly do that, Steve. Certainly will. We'll send you the findings that we've got so far, and maybe you can help us pick them down as well, because there's a lot of numbers and a lot of figures we've got to get through. But we have to
start like a follow-up session.
And and we have to evidence it. If we're trying to prove something, it's got to be evidence. So we're trying to say farming's the answer, but we've got to prove that. And I think this is one of the ways we can evidence what we're doing.
Set up another session, bit of a round table, maybe a few wise heads around it. Would be, love to be part of that. Ross, it's always a joy. Yeah, thanks ever so much for being one of our zero carbon champions. We really appreciate your time today. And to everybody listening, tune in again. There'll be more to come, and there'll be more information here from the great work up at Ingram Valley. Ross, thanks ever so much indeed.
Thanks, Steve.
You're welcome. Thank you.